Hey everyone, welcome to this live office hours learning about Basecamp with QA. My name is Kimberly. I'm on 37 Signals product team. So excited to have you guys here to talk about using Basecamp for QA. These office hour sessions are always so fun for us, and we like to open up our account and let you see how we do things here at Basecamp. So that's what we're going to do here today. Like I said, my name is Kimberly. You might know me from the 37 Signals podcast, Rework. I'm the host of that with our co-founders, Jason Freed and David Heinemeier Hansen. I also lead some of our educational components of Basecamp, creating video tutorials about new product features and just some of how Basecamp and Hey work. So that is a little bit about me. I'm going to turn it over to Ashley, who is on our support team. Ashley, tell us about you.
Hi folks. My name is Ashley. I've been here for 7.5 years at Basecamp / 37 Signals, whatever you know us as. I have been on the support team generally the entire time. I will be in the chat. I will be dropping links kind of like I just have been. I also want to clarify that this is about the QA team or quality assurance team. This isn't about Basecamp in general. So it's not like a Q&A per se. So if you are just kind of new to Basecamp, know that we have classes, intro to Basecamp classes. There are also some questions. I will email each of you individually and answer those questions. So don't worry if you don't hear them being asked today, you'll get an answer to them. So let's also look at Crowdcast itself. So in that chat where I'm dropping things, that is the first button on your top right-hand side. And then right underneath it is a question mark. There are 7 pre-populated questions. Use that one to ask your questions. That's our Q&A section. And when you're also there, you'll see that those other questions, some of you have already begun to upvote them. So there's like a little arrow with a number. Click on that one so that we know which question you are curious about the most, and we'll get to that one as soon as we can.
Perfect. And if you were here live with us, let us know in the chat. Let us know where you're from. I'm coming to you live from Dallas. We always like to hear from people in the chat as well, so we're not just talking to ourselves. So say hello to us there. We will spend about 45 minutes together, up to an hour, just depending on how many questions that we have. And last housekeeping note before we bring out our special guest from the QA team, the session will be recorded. So the link that you came to join the session will be the same place that the recording will live, just a few minutes after we finish. So feel free to come back, watch anything you need to, send it to a friend. That recording will be at the same link that you joined us with. So like we said, today we're talking specifically about QA. We have a 2-person QA team here at 37 Signals, and I'm going to bring them out, let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to walk into some of their projects that they actually use here at Basecamp. So Michael and Gabriel, welcome. Tell us about yourselves, what you do here at Basecamp, how long you've been here. Michael, let's start with you.
Hi, all. Thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here. I have been at 37 Signals for just over 15 years now.
So,
feels like yesterday, really. I started with our support team, and after a few years of really enjoying that work, I felt like a real need to sort of like try and detect some bugs before we were shipping features. So I created what has now become our QA process. And along the way, I also have sort of driven our accessibility work and our accessible design. Yeah, been loving it all the way.
Amazing.
Oh, and I'm in Chicago.
And you're in Chicago. And our more recent addition to QA, Gabriel, tell us about you.
Hi, hey everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Gabriel. I'm from Montreal. I'm just shy of completing my 2nd year at 37 Signals as the second member of the duo QA team. I've been doing QA now. I can consider it a career, I guess, because I've been doing QA for about 17 years. It is something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm excited to show you guys how we do things.
Perfect. Well, let's go ahead. Gabe, I'm going to have you share your screen with us and take us through a few of your projects in Basecamp. Ashley's going to be answering some questions in the chat, dropping links where we need to, and she has a wealth of experience. So Ashley, feel free to jump in as well as you need to. So we're starting here. Gabe, this is your Basecamp home screen. Why don't you talk us through kind of how you have it organized, and then we'll dive into that QA project.
So this is my own screen where I start my day. Basically, I have a few projects that I visit often at the top. So QA is our main project where we receive requests, where we have test plans, everything. We spend a lot of time in this one. The HQ, which is, we hang out there, product, because QA is very much linked with the product team, joined at the hip, so to speak. Then I'll have a folder with the current cycle projects. Basically, at Basecamp, we work in 6-week cycles where we will work on features, projects for a 6-week period, and then 2-week cooldown. That's part of the shape up methodology. So I like to keep the current project in a folder. If you look at the bottom here, I have one for the past cycle 5. Usually there's 6 cycles in a year. So this is the last cycle of the year that is ongoing right now. And then in the middle here, I have a few folders for all our products. So I have Basecamp, I have Hey Email, and Hey Calendar. Hey is one product, but I like to split it in 2 folders. And then another folder for all our once products. And this little folder here with the old school Basecamp logo, that's where I put all the other projects that I usually need, but that don't necessarily fit in any of the other categories.
Perfect. So let's start with the QA project that you have. And I'd love for you to tell us first who's on this project, who has access to the project, and then some of the tools that you use. And then we'll just dive in from there.
Perfect. Cool. Michael, do you want to do the honors?
Sure. Yeah. So here we are looking at the QA project. This is kind of the main space that we work from, and it's our launching point for all of our work. You can see at the top that it's on the project. We have Gabe, myself, and Brian, who's our head of product, and he helps us out just kind of with some oversight of the QA work. And in here we have a collection of tools. The most important is this card table called testing on the left, and we'll dive into that in just a moment. But before we do that, we'll just talk through what else is in this project. We have test runs, which is a collection of, so as we're testing features, what we'll do is we'll use a to-do list template to sort of guide our exploration of the feature. Gabe, if you want to just click into there, we can just show what these look like. So you can see that each of these refers to like a different feature that we're testing. And these checkboxes are just kind of, like I said, to guide our explorations. So these are kind of like the areas of the app that we should be sure to look at or consider looking at based on what we're testing. So when we pull one of these, when we make a new to-do list from one of our templates, the first thing we'll do is kind of go through and to consider if all of these items actually need to be tested for this particular feature, get rid of the stuff that we don't need to test. And then, like I said, use this to guide our testing. If you want to go back to the project here, we also have docs and files. This has some just like useful resources. Recently, we worked on a document to kind of like, to just document all the quirks of our beta testing environment, so that lives in a space like this, just kind of anything that we'll need in the course of our testing work. Our schedule, which is, as you can see, just for our like one that we have each week, and chat, which would be if anyone just wants to like drop a message to the QA team. So let's jump back over to the card table. That first.
Yeah. Before you do that, Michael, let me just point out you have 3 people on the project that you mentioned, and then there's also this 58 just following. This is an all access project, so we have it set up so anyone in the company can join this project, add things to the card table, chat in the chat. That 58 following is really the rest of the company, so anyone can have access to this project.
That's right. Yeah, and.
Sorry to interrupt you. Let's go.
No.
You want to dive into that card table?
That's a great point. Yeah, let's jump into the card table.
But we do work with everybody, so that's cool too.
We do work with everybody, yeah. So it's cool that people want to chime in on what we're doing. So this is the card table that we use to kind of manage our flow of test requests. So let's say that you are one of our product teams working on a new feature. When you're ready for us to, if you're ready to put in a request for some QA testing, you jump over to this card table, you'll add a card like Gabe is demonstrating right now. And it becomes, it shows up in this ready to QA spot. And as you can see, that's the only thing in there right now. When we begin testing the feature, we'll move it over to in progress, and either Gabe or myself or both of us will assign ourselves to the card, and we'll start looking at it. Oftentimes, each of us will just kind of take on a feature on our own. Sometimes we'll be reviewing a feature and then, kind of just ask the other person, just give it a quick run through just to kind of get a second pair of eyes on it. And let's, so just to look at the general flow here. So a card would move from ready for QA to in progress. Let's just look at an in progress card now. Let's click on power.
You should look at this one. I think it's okay to show this one.
The
one that I wrote is a bit bare bones. Let's show you guys what a real one looks like, and it is a very nice one actually.
And just for a disclaimer, we're showing you real work. These are not guaranteed to ship. They are work in progress that we're working on. So just know anything that you see here, it is to be determined if you will actually see it in your account.
Yeah.
We're hopeful.
We're hopeful, and we're feeling pretty good about this one. So
yes,
we felt like it was okay to show. And it was also just a really great example of how you can write a card up. Our colleague Michelle is very thorough. So you can see that here she's included a link to the project, a link to the card table, which we'll show you in a moment, where we add the QA feedback, a link to the beta environment where we are able to use the feature, and then an explanation of like where to test the feature, what to expect of the changes. Like these are just all these notes on the different views within the app and how they've changed, some caveats maybe to, maybe if there's still some rough edges of the feature, it's still in progress. And as you can see, everyone was pretty enthusiastic about Michelle's card notes.
It's very thorough and like sets you guys up for success. I feel like she's laying it all out. Like this is where you find things. This is what you need to look for.
Just color coded it. Yeah, it's perfect. So then once we, so just to kind of wrap up what we would do in this card table here before we jump over to that project. During the course of testing, the card will live in this in progress area. And then once we've sort of like shared all of our feedback with the team, we will move the card to pending input, and we'll add a comment to say, hey, we've finished our QA run on this.
I'll show an example
here. Great.
Basically did some more testing, editing name pings, which is an existing feature, but it is also coming to iOS. And I left a note for Zoe. This looks good. It works great. I found a few things. They're minor. Then listing the things that I found. It could also link to a card table depending on the amount of things, and then parking it there in pending. And we'll hear back from the team or the programmer, the designer, that they've made some extra fixes, and then we can take it back into progress one last time before moving it to the done column.
So I'm going to jump to this question, which you guys are answering right now. What processes, systems do you have in place to manage the workload? Is there a queue? The answer is yes. And you guys are really using card table to manage that work. Ashley, can you drop in the chat the video tutorial about card table? That would be awesome. We have a video all about this specific tool and all the ways that you can use it. But card table is like, it looks like that's your tool of choice, you guys.
It is, yeah. Sometimes, the question here was about like, what was that part of the question? It was like, how do we manage the workload, right? Was that how
do you manage the workload, and is there a queue?
Yeah. So generally, it's kind of like a first in, first out, as kind of the general rule. If you add a card, we'll just grab it. Things seem to kind of become ready for testing generally. Not all at the same time, which is helpful. They also, our mobile cycles are offset. And so that kind of helps manage the workload a bit, just in that we're testing those builds after the cycle features are being tested. But we'll also just like kind of have conversations with the teams. And if one of our colleagues feels like it's important that the feature they're working on is prioritized, then we'll go ahead and shift things around and do that. So it's kind of very dynamic, I guess.
Perfect. And I've preloaded some of the questions that people had when they registered for the session. So you'll see me pulling some of those. Michael, I feel like you answered this one. Do you ever get overloaded with QA? With the process?
Yes. Yeah. I think it kind of covers that one. I mean, sometimes it happens, but not too often. And, obviously like communication is the most important thing. And with the two of us, we're able to knock through things pretty quickly. I think that's a real benefit to having like a 2-person QA team. We're able to distribute that workload.
Okay,
I have a quick question. Do you ever use the due date feature for these?
We don't actually. We refer to the project, the projects themselves for cycle work. Cycle work is usually as a due date, and the due date will be in the cycle like each project as its own Basecamp project, and that's where we'll find the due date for the feature.
Before we jump to a cycle project, is there anything else in this QA project we need to show?
I think we're good.
I think, yeah.
Actually, one thing, let me point out on this watching. Do you guys want to talk about that watching part of the card table?
Yes.
Who's watching it? Why, how that works would be great.
Yeah.
So anybody is free to watch the column, but basically when you're watching a column, you'll receive a notification when somebody adds a card to the column. So obviously Michael and I want to be notified, so we're there. But you also have Brian, our head of product, and you have Chase and Marissa from support that are also there. I'm thinking like you do not necessarily have to be doing QA to want to know what's coming into QA, and so by watching the column, well, in this case, this section, and you'll know what's coming in. This is true for any column, basically. Like you'll see it here, but if you look at these, you also have people watching, and that's just a great way to keep tabs on movement through a card table.
Perfect. Well, oh yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Last thing I'm just mentioning here is this on hold area. So
yes.
This is something that we use on occasion. It's not always present, but basically, these are some reviews or projects that are not very time sensitive. And so they're kind of like work that we can take on once we've wrapped up the priorities of the cycle. So we're able to just use that on hold section just to keep them in our awareness, but to clarify that it's not something we're working on right now.
Perfect. Well, let's jump to a cycle project. And Gabe mentioned earlier, we work in 6-week cycles with a 2-week cool down. And each of those product feature projects, if you will, has its own separate Basecamp project. So if we're working on 3 or 4 features for a cycle, there will be 3 or 4 individual Basecamp projects, each for that specific feature. So we really keep the work organized in a separate project. So do you guys want to dive into one of those cycle projects and tell us a little bit about how you guys do QA within those projects as well?
Yeah.
Sure thing. To just give a quick view to everyone, like this is cycle 5. So obviously you can arrange your own screen how you like, but I had made a stack where all the feature projects were shown, and it was an easy way for me to jump between each of them and remember everything that's getting done this cycle. For the purpose of this demonstration, I have kept just one project in my cycle 6 stack, but usually you would see more than one here. But this is the project that you've seen the QA request for earlier, the Hey Power Through New. So let's see what that looks like.
Great. Thank you. Cool. So yeah, here's our cycle project. As you can see, there's another group of faces at the top there. This time we have Gabe, myself, again, Brian, and then the product team, the team that's working on this feature. So we have Bruno and Michelle. And again, because this is an open project, anyone who clicks into it can follow it. Anyone in the company who clicks into it can follow it. So we have 27 people following it. And most of these tools are just in use by by the product team. They have a message board to just talk through kind of the pitch and any like kind of big changes that happen along the way of the project. To-dos to organize their work, chat for chatting the feature, and then a couple GitHub links. But in the bottom left, we have this thing called QA, and this is another card table, and we'll add this to a project generally when we're ready for QA to begin. So at the same time that that someone adds that QA request to the QA card table, they might add this card table to the project. And this one's broken up a little bit differently. We have triage. This is the space where we'll add new cards for the team to review and consider. Below that, we have up next, which is kind of just for them to organize their work. The next thing they're going to work on. In progress, obviously, card that they're currently addressing, and then this QA to confirm fixed column. So once the product team has reviewed the card, they will take it from triage, most likely to either in progress, or if they decide, okay, well, this is maybe not something we want to address at this moment, we'll move it to not now. So it can go from either from triage to in progress or not now. From in progress, the card will be addressed and then move to QA to confirm fixed. And then we'll jump in there and look at the changes, test it again, make sure that that the change is working as expected and the way that we imagined. And from there, we'll move the card either to done or to in progress. We'll kick it back to in progress if it's still not working quite as we expected. And if we do that, we'll add a comment to kind of explain, hey, like this isn't working. This still isn't working on Chrome, or like here's, looks a little quirky still. So
Michael, I'm going to jump to a question that we have, which I know you have some thoughts about. What are the expectation and scope of testing for programmers and the QA team? I know you've mentioned something about suggestions. I'm seeing some cards here that say suggestion. Can you kind of talk us through like how you guys think about QA?
Yeah. So in terms of like, expectations, we don't have like expectations laid out. Well, I guess they're kind of like quiet expectations. The idea is that like everyone's kind of reviewing their own work, we have an environment here where everyone kind of has a lot of pride around the quality of the work that we're doing and releasing. And so, our programmers or designers are reviewing everything before a feature comes over to QA. In terms of scope, we tend to be really thoughtful about, like how to focus our time. And so like, for example, in this feature that we were just talking through, this power through new, Michelle laid out the pages in the app that are affected by this change. And so we'll really prioritize reviewing those pages. And then we'll do some like spot checking in other places. But we really try to limit like how much time we're giving to each request, and I would say on average, a request can be a QA request round can take anywhere from a few hours to a few days, depending on the complexity of the feature. Gab, do you have anything to add on that one?
I'd say that just in terms of what we check for QA is like we'll look for bugs for sure, but it's really about using the feature and making sure it makes sense, that it's easy to find, that it meshes well with everything else that's there. So it's like looking at it as a second pair of eyes, and also just like a friendly like helping hand to the team. That's why suggestions, for instance, it's not like, oh, you need to have this, you need to have that. It's more of like, oh, maybe this could also work, or have you considered this? And often it'll be that things had been considered, but then hearing somebody else thinking it's a good idea, maybe it'll drive up the interest to do it. And it's just like a kind of like a helpful reminder before sending it out. And sometimes it bolsters the choices of the team as well. Like, for instance, we'll suggest, oh, have you thought about doing this? And then the designer on the team would be like, we have, but it would also introduce this thing, and we're not necessarily ready for that, or we don't have the time or the appetite to build it as much. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. And then it's the right choice. We need to cut down, because you could spend, weeks on a feature sometimes, and you could, keep working and adding stuff. And it's important to do what we call scope hammering, and just going back to what the feature is really about. And that's part of our work as well, is like kind of playing devil's advocate sometimes, but also sometimes like there's stuff that could still make it in. So just trying to think about all that, not just about, there's a visual glitch here and there. So it's like a more of a whole thing approach, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So just to summarize how you guys are using these two different projects, I'm going to put it in my words and you guys tell me if I'm right. You have a QA project that designers, programmers, when they're ready for you to QA a feature, they're dropping a card in your project's card table. And then each cycle project has its own card table. When you guys start testing the features and QAing a feature, you're then dropping cards into this card table for the designer and programmer then to investigate, make updates to, and the work is happening there. Is that a good summarization of those projects?
Perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Excellent.
One other thing I'll just jump onto before we move around, just to follow up on what Gabe was sharing. It's really important for us that we don't look at QA as like a really gatekeeping process, and to his point about, everything that we share being kind of a suggestion, that's very much the vibe that we're trying to cultivate. And there's no harm in saying, this isn't, we don't really want to take this on right now, great suggestion, let's save this for later kind of thing, so it's all we try to keep it very harmonious. And, there are moments when something might come up that one of us feels really passionate about, and we need to be like, hey, we really think this should be part of the feature. But generally it's a very nice kind of back and forth.
And I popped this up on the screen because you're kind of answering this question. Just wanted to see if there's anything else you wanted to add. The question was submitted when someone registered. I wonder if there's any shared responsibilities, as well as any clear boundary between QA team and engineering team at 37 Signals. Anything to add on that? I mean, you really answered that, Michael.
I would just add one thing, is that exactly as much as QA is not a gate, and obviously nobody wants to ship software with bugs. If you want to ship software, it's going to have some bugs that are going to make it in. It could be just because nobody saw them. The developer, the programmer, the designer, the QA, like everybody missed a bug. Obviously, we don't want that. But sometimes also a bug that is like so insignificant that if you spend time fixing it, you're not going to get your thing out. And then at that point, you're going to make a call. You want to have something that's available or something that's perfect. They're both mutually exclusive. And so we prefer to have something that's available. And this is kind of leading into where we're going next. But these bugs that we enter that are not necessarily fixed just yet, they don't just vanish. We do keep them around. And some of them do end up getting fixed later as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect transition if you guys want to go to that Basecamp web project. So we've shown you the QA project, a cycle project. I think next we're going to show this Basecamp web and a little bit of like bug tables and how that works. So if y'all want to dive into that.
Yes. So just to preface this also, we have Basecamp, we have Hey, we have Once products. They don't only get, like, bugs get found outside of cycle work. I mean, it happens all the time. We have just features or fixes that come in outside of cycle work, and people will discover bugs. Like people in the audience right now, you've used Basecamp, maybe you've contacted our great support team and you've let them know, oh, I found this doesn't quite work the way I thought it would, or there's something missing there. These bugs all first go into what we call on call, which we'll probably come back to later. But in the longer run, we like to keep these in each of the products. So for Basecamp, we have the Basecamp web project. And then in this project, where a lot of people are, we have a card table that's called bug triage. And I'll show you this one right now. We'll get back here after. This is basically where bugs that are outside of cycle work would come and live. Just like the card table that we saw for the cycle project, there is a triage section with a lot of people watching this time. There are people from the programming team, people from the support team, just a bit of everybody. One of the reasons is that, as I mentioned earlier, we have cooldown periods, and during those periods, the programmers and the designers are kind of left to their own devices. They can work on pet projects, they can work on improving things that they feel strongly about, and some of them do like to come in here and tackle some of these issues that we can find here. So Michael and I will review the issues in triage and move them to these two columns here: prioritize design and prioritize dev. So those would be issues that in the moment we feel they could benefit from, getting some love, so to speak. But it's nothing that is urgent. Like if there's an issue that's urgent, it would have been handled way before it lands here. This is more of a, like, nobody's gonna lose data or is gonna be locked out of their account. Like that kind of stuff would get handled. This is more of like long-term fixes. It could be very edge casey stuff, or it could be stuff that would take a long time to fix that can also have it land there, if that makes sense. And then some devs and some designers will take on some work here.
So Alan, yes, in answer to your question, it is a separate project. And then we also have on-call projects as well, which has some bug tracking features, but they are considered separate from the actual QA testing functions. Anything else in this project to walk people through?
I would, like, you can see that there's not a whole lot of bugs here, but obviously we want to keep track of existing issues to reference them, because let's say, I remember there was an issue with this screen, but I can't find it anywhere. We don't want that. We want people to be able to find existing issues. So what we did is that things will live here for a while, and then if a bug has been here for maybe 3-4 months and there's no activity, we will move it to another card table, because you can actually move cards from one card table to another. I will take this bug as an example here, which is been in the the table for about 3 months now. Maybe, yes. So we don't want to forget about it. It's still important, but we're obviously not going to work on it right now. So in order to make room for newer things to be considered, I will, instead of moving it here, which is just to move between columns, we'll go in the option menu and then choose move. And then I'm able to move it either to another project, but in this case, I want to move it within the Basecamp web to another table that's called known issues. And so I will move it here, and now it is moved. I will show you this card table. It's a bit different. There's a lot more here, and this is where we categorize known issues for to refer to them later. So instead of having a flow, like a left to right flow in the bottom section here with the columns, we've built columns as categories of issues, and we can sort them that way and refer to them either when we're looking for something, see if it's already logged, and if we're doing, feature work that we want to improve, let's say the chat, then these are things that we might want to tackle at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting way to organize your card table. You can be using it more like Kanban style, moving it through stages, but you guys are using it, this particular one, in categories. I think that's interesting.
And having this reference is super handy when we want to like tackle this chunk of work, whether we're, let's say let's just use chat for an example, tools chat, if we're doing something around chat, let's take a look at these, see if there are bugs that we can either clean up in the course of working on that feature, or maybe there's a collection of bugs here that might make sense as like, let's just dedicate some time to polish this area.
That's great. Do you want to go back to any of those other card tables within this project? I know there's several. I want to leave enough time. We have several questions that I want to get to. So
Absolutely.
If there's anything you want to show in this project, let's do that, and then we'll jump into questions.
Well, just to parallel, like we have something that's eerily similar in our Hey Web project. I guess I can show it quickly just as a top view. The only difference is you'll see that we've separated the triage section into two card tables, one for email bugs, one for calendar bugs. It is easier to, in context, understand what you're looking at that point. And however, we do not have two known issues table. What we did is just keep all the calendar and email issues in one table and color code so that we know if it's a calendar category or an email category. So you can really take the card table and make it yours. You can do a lot of custom stuff in there that it doesn't have to be necessarily just 4 columns. It can be 50 if you want to.
And one other thing just to mention while we're in here, and because these aren't really the bug tables, but you see these quick wins card tables as well. And these would be like, over the course of testing, we might have ideas of things that feel like tangential to the feature project, but maybe not something that is appropriate to address right then and now. So we'll go to these quick win card tables and write up kind of an idea for like a small or large improvement to the given product. And Brian, our head of product, will typically review all of those and sort of decide, whether to, expand on them, whether to set them aside for now. So that's a really great tool that we also use a card table for.
Another, speaking of this quick wins and moving between card tables, that's something that happens as well. If I just go back quickly to the cycle project, if we have stuff that's in not now, and those would be, instead maybe an idea that would be suitable for quick win, then it's always possible to go in one of them and move it to the right project. And
So I'm assuming you guys are doing some cleanup after cycles of moving things from not now to other projects. Does that sound right?
Exactly. Or even sometimes stuff that there was a bug, let's say in the project that is not critical and that we can ship with. We don't want to leave that bug in the cycle project. We'll move it into, like if it's a Hey project, we'll move it into the Hey bug triage, so that bugs are always easier to find than going, oh, I think that was a bug that came from this feature in cycle 4. Let's go look in that. No, that would be like very
Right.
very tricky. So we just have habit of moving anything that's not in the done section as much as possible, moving it back after the cycle.
Okay. Well, I think we should knock out some questions. So Let's do it. Let's get us all back on stage. Gabe, you can stop sharing your screen. And I'm going to go with this one at the top. It has a couple of upvotes, which is, does Basecamp regress test every single code push to production?
I can jump in on this one. So no, we don't. I mean, we we have some system tests and some unit tests to provide some basic guard against regressions. And like I alluded to earlier, we encourage folks to smoke test their work, make sure that things are really kind of working, at least the basics as expected. But QA is very much like an optional thing that our teams can decide whether to enlist in the course of their project. So we don't take any offense if a team has decided, okay, we feel pretty good about this change, like we'll skip QA. It doesn't happen too often. Our teams like really enjoy what we add, but it it does happen.
Okay, I like kind of hate popping these questions up because Michael, they go on your face, but I will hide them soon after.
I'll move over here.
The next question is, how do you do QA at a pre-seed startup when you're both a project manager and the only person doing QA? Any tips? This one came in when someone registered. Any tips when you're really a QA? I mean, you guys are a QA department of 2. It would be similar to being a QA department of 1. Any tips for this person?
I can give tips about, QA in general. If you're the person doing the QA, you want to position yourself as a helping hand. You want to position yourself as somebody that's there to kind of like just look at the work. And that's what you want to be doing. You want to be looking at the work, not just, you want to play with it. You want to test, like not just test like, oh, okay, I got to just go down the list of things. Is just spend time with the feature that your team is building, understand it, understand what it's going to bring to your customers, understand what are the limitations of it, and then be a champion for your team, and just make sure that if they forgot something, you just tell them like, oh, I noticed this or I noticed that. But as we said earlier, like don't act as a gate, especially if you're a project manager. It could be tempting to be like, well, I'm the project manager. So if you're acting as QA, try to put a very different hat on, and you're basically just there to help and give peace of mind to your team that somebody else has looked at what's going out, and to give them recommendation, not give them like a list of bullet points of things to fix or it doesn't go out. Like that introduces a dynamic that I'm not a fan of. At the end of the day, shipping something great is a team effort, and it's also about compromises, and also about just everybody agreeing on something, and not having somebody that's like, I'm deciding and nothing's getting passed unless it's to my liking. That doesn't yield a good atmosphere or a good result. So regardless of who you are in your organization, if you're doing the QA, that's how I would propose you to approach it.
I would also guess, you guys mentioned you have like these templated to-do lists that also would be helpful from a one-person QA, like just making sure you're doing the Android and the iOS and all of the different browsers, and making sure you just have that list templated out to use every single time might be helpful.
That's also a great thing. Yes, we want to touch on all those points. We want to go the extra mile, like platforms, but also yes, light mode, dark mode is a big one. Everybody is like camp light mode or dark mode, and there's a few people who do like follow it's dark, and then everything turns dark on their computer. And you got to kind of be the person that's gonna take a look at all these as well.
I'm team light mode, just as an FYI. Okay, we have a couple of questions about automation, so I'm going to get to those. First from Jonathan, who's here with us live. Does QA use any automated testing, or is it all manual, i.e. humans?
Most of it's manual. We're pretty human, both of us. We have brought in a bit of automation on the QA side, actually within the last maybe 6 months or a year. Our colleague Lewis helped us build out a tool that uses Playwright to basically take screenshots of a collection of pages in either Basecamp or Hay, depending on what we're testing. Then we're able to, and this is all local, this testing. So run this tool that takes these screenshots of these different pages. Then we can tell it to point to a different feature branch and run through and take that same collection of screenshots and then do like a visual comparison of the two. And so that's been a really helpful way for us to easily detect really small changes and then bubble up, whether they were intentional or not. So that's been a really helpful aid for our process. And I think in general, like we're open to and always looking for ways to make ourselves like more efficient and but staying away from like a full-on automation approach. We really value, I think, just like this personal experience of interacting with the features and what that sort of QA brings to our work.
Okay, very good. Question about our production schedules. How do you stagger pushes to production for different feature releases? I mean, this isn't really a problem for us, but maybe we can talk about the difference between schedules with mobile and
yeah. Well,
web.
it's really, so you talked about these like 6-week cycles that we have, and within a 6-week cycle, a feature could be like a 2-week feature, a 4-week feature, or a 6-week feature generally. And so that that sort of structuring just kind of as a result means that not everything is coming for testing at the same time. So that works out pretty well. And additionally, our mobile teams have their 6-week cycle offset by 2 weeks. And so typically what we see is that around the time when we finish testing the cycle projects from the web product teams, the mobile teams are now ready for us to start looking at their work. So that helps to balance it out a bit. I don't know if you have anything else to add there, Gabe, but I think that's pretty much it.
Sounds right to me.
Cool.
Okay. I think this is a quick one from Billy. Does anyone get blamed when a bug is found live? Found in production? We're not really a blaming kind of crew.
No, because people are very, there's no gross negligence going on here. People are very, like as I said earlier, passionate about what they're delivering. That is from head to toe. Like everybody in their organization wants to have a great product out. And mistakes happen and oversight happen. What needs to happen when a bug is, let's say Ashley receive a bug from a customer and they're like, oh, this is broken, and then Michael and I did not know this, the programmer did not know this, the designer did not know this. What's important to do at that point is just do a bit of work of thinking, okay, but what could we have done to like catch it earlier? Sometimes there's no way to catch it earlier. It's such a race condition type thing, or just a very edge casey thing that it's like, well, we missed it, and it sucks. I don't like missing bugs. Obviously, it stresses the hell out of me. But I did my best, and everybody on the team did their best. But sometimes you'll be like, oh, but this type of thing, if we looked at certain things more often, or if we, let's say, just as a quick example, we do have a new test on, well, not so new, but on Android builds, we'll do a quick memory leak test. And that's something that we didn't do in the past, but then there has been more memory leaks going on with just the OS, like Google Android OS. So to shield ourselves from surprises, and we'll run this test now, and normally we won't catch anything, but we're still going to run it as a precaution, because it doesn't take a long time to test and to do the testing, and it is a big added value of, if there's something wrong with the memory leak, we'll find it. So if you got to do something, like if you got to add what some people call scar tissue to your process, just make sure that it is very quick to do, and that the yield in security and in peace of mind is big. You don't want to be like, oh, this edge case happened that one time on Safari version so-and-so with this plugin on the browser. Now we got to test every single feature on that version of Safari with that plugin. No, that's recipe for disaster. That's recipe for everyone burning out. So do it smart.
Okay, I'm going to jump to this question I accidentally put on the screen earlier, which is from Karen. When customers report bugs, actually this one might be for you, what kind of responses can they expect, and what kind of promises are given in terms of resolution? Do you want to answer that from a support perspective?
Definitely, because when those kinds of things come in to me and to my team, well, just for our case specifically, we're very well situated around the globe. And so when something comes in at, 10 o'clock my time, it is Tony's midday, someone in Australia. So we take a look at it, and I think it really just depends on, is this something that's happening to multiple people, or is this like a you specific situation? Both are valid. We help you with both. And when it is something that looks like a bug that is affecting more than one individual, our team we put on our QA hat and we will test as many things as we can so that we can make sure that, that we have all the details that we need. And then sometimes we will bring in a Gab or a Michael into it and be like, PS, is this how you would do it? And then after that, we'll write up a card, bring that to on-call. And frankly, there is also, just to go back to that blaming question, there is no blaming. And even when something does come up, I'm always so happily surprised at how quickly things shift. I just have like a strong memory of, something happening for like maybe 3 or 4 individuals in the support queue, and then us happening to tell Andy, who just fixed it in like what felt like 20 minutes, And so these things, I think because of our team size and our process, we just kind of get them resolved really quickly.
It does seem like a really just in how we address bugs in general, like when they come in through support, when they come into on-call, like that's a real motivator for us to prioritize that work because it's affecting someone right now, and so when we can, like that's really a way that we knock bugs out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I love it. We're gonna power through these. We have about 10 minutes left. Question for the 2 of you as a 2-person team. Does QA become a tight bottleneck when 1 or 2 of you is on PTO?
It can. It's happened. It has happened. But because it's not like a gatekeeping sort of process, we hope that won't hold up work too much. I mean, it can get pretty busy if one of us is out and a bunch of stuff comes due at one time, but it's kind of the exception that the QA request would pile up in that way.
We'll do our best not to take vacation at the same time. And it's a bit of the motivator for my hire, actually, is a bit of that. Michael was going to go on a sabbatical, and David felt like, I don't know if I want to have, was it 6 weeks then, the sabbatical? Yeah. Like 6 weeks of, but you were gone for 2 months basically. And David was like, I don't know that I want to have like 2 months with no QA. That might not be great. And so that's how I came to be gainfully employed here.
Well, and this question, I'm sorry, Gabe.
But that's what I'm saying. Like we would not take both a sabbatical at the same time. Like there are things that we'll chat with each other and see like, well, for the holidays, for instance, that are coming up. It's like, I'm taking off this and that week. How about you? Like, how do we make it work? If we're off like a couple of days at the same time, it's no big deal. But if we were to both take a week or 2 off at the same time, then we'd definitely check if it's okay.
Okay, I'm going to jump to Gregorius's questions. He has a couple. Do QA issues block release for you guys?
Only if they're really, really bad. Like but then nobody would be like, I'm going to release that anyway. Like everybody would agree, okay, we need to fix that before we ship. It's that easy.
And then follow-up question is, are all features from all products QA tested? And then how do you handle the workload if there are many features on queue to be tested? We've talked about this a little bit, but are all features from all products QA tested?
No. Some are not. Some don't need to be. Some features are very, very simple and done by people who really, really watch what they're doing. So we're okay with that as well.
And then we also kind of address this as well. Some of those QA things that come in get moved to the not now pile, so they aren't all addressed. Okay, here is a technical question about how we work in card table from Sophie. How do you handle the fact that card table activity doesn't show up in the project activity feed? I feel like I know what you guys are going to say about following cards, but I'm curious.
It does show up in the recent activity, however. That's just my workflow with Basecamp. I usually especially when I need to write at the end of the day what I've been working on. I'll refer to recent activity and my recent activity, and they do show up there, like the creation of cards and comments made on cards and stuff like that. But you're right, the move of cards through columns does not show up there. That's not something that affects me in terms of what I need as information, but I could definitely see how it could in your case, if it's something that you need to know. So that's an interesting point to bring up for sure.
Well, and I was going to say, not even from the QA side, but just how I work with card table in general. I am typically following a card or a column that I'm interested in. So I'm not needing to look at that activity feed of where a card is moved because I'm getting a notification on the things that I care about.
Yes.
So maybe the move then for you, Sophie, could be to like subscribe to the card table or to the column. And then if you get notifications that like a card was added, then you can click through to it and then subscribe to that card, because then you'll be notified of future moves for that particular card.
Yeah. Sophie, hopefully that helps. If not, Ashley's going to send a follow-up email to everyone who's here, and she can work through some of those details with you directly. Question from Gregorius. Does the QA team play a role in the product team's planning or shaping up process? This is interesting. If maybe you guys want to talk us through how projects start in the shaping process and how you guys are involved. If you are involved.
Yeah, we don't have like a ton of involvement in terms of like shaping of our features. One way that we do kind of get involved is because we have such a close relationship with Brian, our head of product. Sometimes in the course of our conversations, we might have recommendations or suggestions of stuff to work on. And so sometimes over the course of our conversations, that might turn into a cycle project, kind of like this idea that we had for an improvement. Another way that we've been able to drive accessibility is kind of like trying to package up some accessibility improvements and then pitching those as like a cycle project, and then kind of like helping to I guess project manage that project when appropriate. Yeah, I think that's pretty much
perfect. Okay, we have just one more question, you guys. I left this one for the end because it's more like, tell us about yourself. This is from Billy. What inspires you to enter and continue to work in the QA fields?
You want to start with this one, Gabe?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. I got into QA kind of accidentally, really. I'll skip all the details, but I'll say what keeps me going really is that this type of line of work ticks all the little boxes in my head where I feel good about what I'm doing. I like to help. I like to make people relax. I like to lend a hand. I like things that are organized. I like things that work well. So everything about this line of work is something that resonates very much with how I feel about things. So that's what keeps me going. Also, just in terms of here, like the opportunity to work on such amazing products and get to spend time using these products to build them, which is completely bonkers. It's the best feeling. So that'll keep me going forever.
Nice. Michael, what about you?
Yeah, for me, I would say like user experience is the thing that resonates with me the most. Like making a product or feature the best that we can, or making it work in a way that just like makes sense. I think, the bugs that I find that I feel best about are when I like come up with an idea, midway through a project of like, well, what if it worked like this? What if we tried this? And I feel like that extra polish that we're able to bring by approaching a feature with this like fresh perspective is really so rewarding. And I guess just to add on to what Gabe said about the team here, I mean, I think like continuing to work in the field, but a lot of that is just like working with this great set of colleagues.
Yes.
Really talented and wonderful folks that we get to work with every day.
Amazing. You guys, thanks for being here. my QA friends and Ashley from support. This has been awesome. A couple things to wrap it up. We've talked a lot about the card table tool, and this Friday, our support team is doing a similar office hours session about card table specifically, how it works and how to use it. So I'm going to drop that. Oh, Ashley beat me to it. If you want to register for that, it is this Friday at 1 o'clock Central. And like I said before, Ashley's going to follow up with everyone here with an email, a link to this recording, and a way to get in touch with her. If you have any questions on how to reach her, she is at support@basecamp.com. and is here to answer any questions that you guys have. Thank you guys so much. This has been so fun. Again, the link that you came to will have the recording if you want to send it to anyone else or rewatch it. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. This was fun.